What's up, hobby friends? June was a mixed month for me hobby-wise. It was a combination of clearing through some backlog, working on some commission projects, building up my Marvel collection, building towards my 10-man affiliation, and then just odds and ends of things that I want to work on but aren't geared towards any specific project. The first few weeks of the month was more focused on finishing off some terrain. I'd actually started building a lot of this stuff January, February, with the goal or the intent of getting a table to actually play on while we were in lockdown. So a couple of my friends we've all been basically self-isolating. We get together every couple of weeks to play some socially distanced games, and I wanted to have some terrain that we could play on. It was dense enough for the new edition of 40K. So that was my focus for the first 2 weeks. I got pretty much all of my desert rock terrain done, which actually provides that flexibility to play AOS as well. Being able to have terrain that can be played back and forth, do double duty, and then a couple of industrial ruins and silos for the 40K board. I switched gears and I tackled another Knight Tyrannus for the ongoing commission that I have with a client in France. And that was actually a nice change of pace to be able to work on something larger scale. It feels like I've been working on like 28 mil figures for the past few months, and working on something like the Knight with its large armor panels and just bigger surface area, but chunky details, it's not quite as fine. It was a nice change of pace and just an easy way to sort of relax and push paint across a model without worrying about like the little nitty-gritty stuff and going all cross-eyed painting small models. I picked up and I actually have a whole bunch of Soulblight models. So I've got Radukar, Lock of Eye, and a couple of the Vergos characters. I think it's the Rat Prince and the Masked Lady, Animus of the Opera. And I had been kind of on the fence about whether I wanted to do Soulblight as an army. If you don't know me already, I'm a huge Death fan. I've been collecting Death since 6th edition Fantasy. And Soulblight sort of harken back to the old Vampire Counts book, the reintroduction of some of the more notable bloodlines, and then reimagining a lot of the vampire figures. I guess from an aesthetic point of view, really appeals to me, but looking through the book, it strikes me a lot like, at least the way I would want to play them, very much like Bone Reapers would play. And the army feels too one-dimensional for me. I think the army build that I would lean towards would be a Castelli, sort of an undead Bretonnian feel, leaning on Blood Knights, and then taking some Dire Wolves, and then some heroes for support. And there's nothing in the army that screams must play, and I don't relish the idea of painting like 30 Blood Knights or whatever. So I'm probably just going to not do the army. I'll paint up the heroes I have in whatever color scheme tickles my fancy, and then we'll just call it that. Which actually works very, very well, because Age of Sigmar 3 just dropped, and we've sort of spent, in my hobby group, probably the past week and a half, 2 weeks, really brainstorming and diving deep into what list building will mean for our current collections and how we think the game will be played. And I really get a sense that I think KO are still in a pretty good spot, and that's an army I want to keep expanding. Continuing on in the robot theme, perhaps adding in some Fire Slayer units, maybe a converted Gotrek into my army. There's rumors that the Dwarden are going to be getting a combined faction book that lets them play the regular like Free City Dwarves, Carriage Overlords, and the Fire Slayers all in one book. So if that rumor is true and that army does drop, I think continuing to expand my Junk Force is probably what my plan is going to be for Age of Sigmar moving forward. I already have a list, at least conceptually, written out, sort of what I want to build towards. So I think next month I'll be working on building the robots that I need to start playtesting my new 2,000 point list, and then, I don't know, we'll go from there. Something we've been working on as well within our hobby group, gearing towards and sort of leading into the first few months of the new Age of Sigmar, is something that we're calling March to Battle. Essentially, it's just you paint up, I think, every month there's 2 things that you have to paint up, and it's a preset list, quote unquote. So something like this month was painting a hero and a battle line. I think next month is painting a unit, and then a behemoth or an artillery or a hero. Next unit, it's like the battle line and then a unit of your choice, things like that. And then I think we're going to culminate 3 or 4 months down the road with not necessarily a mega battle, but maybe like a smallish tournament, or we'll get together with our new units and play some games. And basically, the goal is to motivate and encourage people to paint up new stuff, expand their collections towards whatever their new list is going to be for the new edition, and then we can basically wrap up and play games. So this past month I painted Radukar and Krulghast the Cruciator. I think that's the name, or Krulghast Cruciator, a Nighthaunt hero. And these don't fit into the army I intend to play, which is a Junk Force. And they're just 2 random Age of Sigmar units. That's fine. It's stuff I wanted to get done. A large reason was because I was waiting for the new rules to drop and to get a sense of how I might want to expand my army before diving in and sort of building and painting stuff I might not necessarily need. But I think for the next couple of months for this March to Battle, now that I have a plan and a list moving forward, I will be adding Junk Force to that, which I will be painting over the next few months. So I want to add 15 Thunderers. I probably need to add another 20 Arcanauts, and probably build up a Gotrek Kansas, and then we'll go from there. So that'll cover probably the next 2 months, and then we'll see. As is the fashion with my hobby group as well, we tend to dabble in a lot of games. And something that I've been collecting over the past few months is Marvel Crisis Protocol. And we were originally going to have a sort of refresher date, July 4th, but that looks like it's being pushed back probably until the end of the month, or like the second last week of July. Now that they're rolling out the second shots for Ontario, and most of us are probably a week away from getting our second shot if they haven't already. So I think we're just going to play it safe. We're going to push it back, and that gives me more time to finish up my 10-man roster. So what I'm building towards is Web Warriors primarily, and then I'm introducing some of the Spider Foes into the list, at least just for myself thematically. So I'm not huge in the comics. Based on the comics and the films, there have been instances where these heroes or anti-heroes will fight with Spider-Man against a greater foe. So I have Mysterio, Carnage, Black Cat, Venom. These are heroes or anti-heroes that do clash with Spider-Man, but will also ally with him against a common greater foe. So I think that's going to be my 10-man roster to start. I still have to paint up Lizard, Amazing Spider-Man, and then I've got Kraven and Bullseye, just as extra models that I bought because they come in 2 packs. So I want to get those done probably within the next 2 weeks, and then we'll go from there. I've sort of been trying to work towards clearing my backlog and not counting my Deathwatch, which I actually want to touch upon in a second. My goal is to essentially have no unpainted models by the end of the year. And again, not counting my Deathwatch. So I have a couple of models that I've been sitting on for probably the past 2.5 years now. And these are typically just like one-off busts or larger 75mm figures. And thankfully, I'm at a point right now where there's not a whole lot in 40K or Age of Sigmar that tickles my fancy. And I don't have a lot of new things coming in. I'm at a good place right now where I probably only have about maybe 15 or 20 models left to finish. And they're just sort of odds and ends, either display figures or one-offs that don't really belong to any army. And I think it'll be cool to paint up for fun and either post to Patreon or YouTube, depending on what my project log looks like and sort of what content I want to produce moving forward. Speaking of Deathwatch. So I have 2 armies, quote unquote. I mean, they are armies. I have my combined Infinity, and then I have my Deathwatch for 40K. And I think more than likely what I'm going to be doing is just getting rid of my Infinity. I think this is the third time I've tried to get into the game, and every single time I'll paint up a few models, and even the models that I enjoy or want to paint, I end up not really enjoying because they're just not fun. I don't know what it is, but I don't find Infinity models fun to paint. And I thought that combined with sort of the alien feel and how every single model does look different because of the fact that they are, it feels like they're alien mercenaries being brought in from all these different races and factions and empires. They're fighting collectively together against the more unified empires of Infinity. And I can't do it. It's not fun. And the game itself strikes me as, if it's not my main game, if I'm not playing that game and only that game, I'm not going to get good at it. And I don't think I have or want to devote the time to learn how to play that game and to play it well. So I think chances are I'm probably just going to sell off the stuff I have, maybe keep one or two pieces that I actually do really want to paint. So like I have the Avatar, and I have a couple of limited edition models that I think will be cool to paint, but the rest I'm just going to get rid of and then put it towards stuff I actually want to work on. Speaking of my Deathwatch, I've been waffling on them both within my group and internally. I'm sure my friends are sick of hearing me flip back and forth on whether I actually want to do them. And I think I've settled on committing to them, and that's largely because a couple of my friends and I are going to be committing to what we call a hate project at the start of 2022. And essentially this is our tale of 4 warlords. And so a couple of us were going to be committing to building and painting an army essentially from scratch. So we have one friend doing 40k orcs, and then another doing Sisters of Battle, and I will be tackling my Deathwatch. And essentially the goal is, starting in January, we're going to grow our forces incrementally by 250 points, culminating in July or August, where we actually bring a full painted 2,000 point army that we'll have a mega battle with. And the incentive essentially is to track our progress. It's a hate project, so it's something we're not all looking forward to, but something that we'll work on together and be unified in hate and suffering and misery. At the end of every month, we'll play a doubles game at random in terms of partners. And so starting off small, we'll have like 500 points, and every month we're going to be growing that by 500 per side. So at some point after 2 or 3 months, we'll actually start to have proper games, even if they're only at double. So in terms of fitting into the goal of being fully painted by the end of the year and having no unpainted models, I'm not going to be counting Deathwatch because they're slotted towards my 2020. In terms of stuff that I want to get done for the month of July, I've got a couple of the Marvel models to finish. So Lizard, Amazing Spider-Man, Kraven, and Bullseye. I don't think there's any new models being released for Marvel that I really want to paint. So I think after these 4, I'm probably going to stop collecting Marvel for a little bit, just to get some games under my belt, get a feel for how I actually want to play, and then start to bolster out my roster based on what I think my faction. I'm building towards Web Warriors, and then sort of whatever else slots in thematically or narratively for them. And there's not a lot of other factions that I'm super interested in. I think I need Kingpin, Dr. Octopus, and Green Goblin to round up my spider foes. So at some point, whenever those come back in stock at my local hobby store, I'll pick those up. I'll probably want to convert my Dr. Octopus to be Dr. Octavia from Into the Spider-Verse, and we'll go from there. I'm leaning towards maybe Wakanda or Asgard, but I'm not a huge fan of the models for either of those ranges, so we'll see. I think I might have a couple of commissions coming in, maybe some Skitarii for the Tyrannus project, and then I'll be working on some Junk Force stuff for that Age of Sigmar March to Battle, so probably building and painting some Thunderers, and then I want to paint up Lockavai. I'll play it by ear from there. I'm at a nice point now where there's nothing I really need to paint, and there's not anything I have to grind through. So I've sort of just been picking and prodding at stuff that I have lying around. Whatever I feel like painting or recording, that's sort of what I'll be tackling over the month. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. I'll drop a link to my socials in the description below if you want to like, follow, and subscribe. Until next time, happy hobbying.